Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head across the Øresund to Copenhagen in Denmark once again, and we're going to revisit one of my favourite Danish craft breweries, but it's been about 2 or 3 months actually since I've reviewed anything from them, which is of course a little bit too long. So we're going to go to Amager Bryghus once again, and we're trying a beer from one of the recent releases that they did actually. This series of beer was released back in February of 2019. So this one is the first member that I'm trying of the Wicked Tales of Scotland series, basically a series of 4 beers aged in Scotch whisky barrels. There's a barley wine, an imperial stout, an imperial porter, and then there's this guy, the Red Cap, which is the Scotch Ale, coming in at 9.5% ABV. My first ever Scotch Ale I've tried from Amager Bryghus, but I do know they did one with a Brazilian brewery, but I wasn't able to try that. But this one is aged for 7 months in Auchentoshan barrels, and the Auchentoshan distillery, of course, is from Clydebank, just outside of Glasgow, which makes it a lowland whisky. So really looking forward to trying this one. Hopefully I can review the other beers in the Wicked Tales of Scotland series. I'm not sure how possible that's going to be. What actually happened was that Box Beer messaged me through Instagram and they said, oh, we'll send you the 4 of these to review. I sent them my address, they just never appeared. I messaged them back and said, you know, did you send them, did they get lost, whatever. Nothing back. So I was a bit annoyed about that, because otherwise I would have bought them myself, but you know, that's just what happens sometimes. But very excited to try my first Scotch Ale from Amager Bryghus, and hopefully it's not the last one, because I've always really enjoyed the beers that these guys do. They're particularly good when it comes to the big malty beers, and also when it comes to the IPAs and stuff like that too. I did buy this beer in their new tap room, which is just next to Nuraport station as well. So yeah, really looking forward to trying this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Amager Bryghus before. No doubt I will review some more in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Amager Bryghus then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Amager Bryghus are based in Kastrup in Copenhagen, which is in the southern part of the city, and of course that's the capital city of Denmark. But these guys are probably one of the best known Danish craft breweries these days. They've done a hell of a lot of exporting over the last little while. But the brewery itself was established back in April of 2007 by 2 friends, Morten Valentin Lundsbach and Jakob Storm, both of whom were avid homebrewers. But their whole love of beer started off with a project in school where the pair were forced to work together in chemistry and physics, and so they decided to write the report about the fermentation process that was going on in beers, and this really just set the ball rolling. Both of them gained their brewing diplomas from the Scandinavian Brewing School back in 2008, and this brewery has since gone on to become very highly decorated. In fact, their first brewery was located in Tornby in the southern part of the city, but they've been constantly expanding over the last few years, and eventually I think just last year they moved to a new facility which is closer to Kastrup Airport, and very recently, I think it was only within the last couple of weeks actually, I'm filming this review for you on the 12th of May 2019, just the day after the Mikkeller beer celebration. They actually opened up their tap room, which you can find just outside of Nuraport station in Copenhagen too. Very nice bar actually. They've got a really good list of Amager beers that you can get. They've got a lot of different bottles and stuff in there, and you can also try a lot of their beers on tap as well. When I was in, they had some Voodoo beers. They're from Pennsylvania over in America, and they did have some of their regular ones. They had quite a few nice ones like Arctic Sunstone, which is a really nice American pale ale, and they also had Batch 1000 as well, which I never thought I would see again. I thought they'd stop doing that. But yeah, I had that on tap, which was really quite nice to have for the first time there. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about the brewery. What I will say about these guys as well is that they are very prolific. That's one of the difficult things about these guys. I would love to keep up to date with all the different beers that they're doing. But you know, living in Sweden, we don't get too many of them. I need to see if I can set up something where I pay the brewery directly and get them to mail them to me. I would actually quite like that. But yeah, they're a very prolific brewery. They do a lot of collaborations with different breweries around the world, and they very recently just changed to the little 330ml bottles, having previously done everything in 500 mils actually. But yeah, so if you want to learn a little bit more, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and that will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on there. But let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, this one is a 9.5% Scotch Ale, wee heavy as the Americans would call it. You know, in traditional Scottish terms, this one will probably be along the lines of an 80 shilling or a 90 shilling. Usually in Scotland you had 40s to 90s, and depending on the malt content and of course the subsequent alcohol content, the tax on these beers went up, so they became known as 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90 shilling beers. Most of the American Scotch ales that you'll actually find tend to be around the 80 and 90 shilling mark, but most of the traditional ones I think are usually around the 60 or 70 shilling mark. It wasn't too common I think in Scotland to get 80s and 90s, but if there are any old heads watching from Scotland that know a bit better than that, do please let me know in the comment section below. So to tell you a bit about the specs of this beer, and as I said, 9.5%, it's aged in Auchentoshan whisky barrels which come from Clydebank, so that makes them a lowland whisky distillery. The malt base in this one is pale, crystal and biscuit with some roasted barley in there as well, and they've also got some wheat malt and some demerara sugar as well. The hops are Azaka and lemon drop, which is quite an interesting blend actually for a Scotch ale. Azaka usually gives you some oranges, and lemon drop of course gives you some quite sharp lemony citrus, so this will be quite interesting, and it uses a US ale yeast strain. But yeah, again from Amager Bryghus, as you always get some lovely artwork on their beers. I do miss when they put the Danish flag on these actually. That was one of the things. I do miss that when they had the Danish flag. I do like it when beers say like product of Sweden, product of Denmark or whatever. But it says on the side here, I always like reading these blurbs on the Amager reviews. It says, as romantic as they may seem, the many castle ruins along the Anglo-Scottish border should only be approached with extreme caution, because here in the rubble of algae-covered bricks from ancient fallen walls is where the red cap reigns. As small and timid as this little goblin-style creature may seem, as fast you should run if you ever meet one. The red cap is said to favour ruins of castles that once witnessed violent or gruesome events. Here he will wait for the occasional visitor, which he will kill by throwing big pieces of rock at this unfortunate soul. When the target is dead, the red cap will soak his cap in the victim's blood, and since the red cap will die if the blood of his victims ever dries out, this little creature is extremely dangerous and always on the prowl for new blood. In spite of our earlier advice to run when encountering a red cap, you may be hard pressed to outrun him. Red caps are speedy little buggers. Instead, you should start quoting that Bible you can always carry around in your back pocket or hold up a cross. Only these actions will drive the red cap away. He will then disappear in a flash of flames, leaving behind only a big tooth. Why exactly a tooth, nobody knows, but a tooth it always is. So yeah, I do wonder where they come up with these stuff actually. They must have enjoy a few of these beers before they write the blog. But there you can see the Amager Bryghus bottle cap on this one. I do have my Amager glasses I always like to use, and yeah, nicely presented once again. So without further ado, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting. If memory serves me correctly, this might actually be the first Danish Scotch ale that I've tried. I don't think I ever had one from Mikkeller or from Toul, right enough, or any of the other breweries that come to mind actually. So this may well be the first Danish brewed Scotch ale that I've had. I'll need to check that actually, but it's definitely the first Scotch ale that I've had from Amager Bryghus, so really excited to see how they do with my native beer style, if you like. So yeah, these Scotch ales can always be quite different colours, but if I hold this one up to the light, this one, I don't know how well you're going to see that on the camera, but this one is a lovely dark, very very dark ruby colour. You can see a bit of the ruby edge just down here. I'm just checking on the camera control, but you can see a lovely, very very dark ruby colour to this one, mahogany chestnutty, but very dark ruby kind of colour to the beer. There's a half finger of well, probably about a third finger rather, of a frothy beigey tan head, but that very quickly faded away to be a very thin kind of foamy layer actually, but one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, this looks absolutely nice and not overly surprising when you consider that it is a Scotch ale. You can get them being a little bit lighter than this. You can get them being a little bit more of a kind of mahogany brown colour, almost like the glass bottle actually. So they can, Scotch ales can be a variety of different colours. It really depends on what you use in the malt base of them actually. But yeah, looks very, very nice and not out of the realms of possibility for a Scotch ale in terms of its appearance. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this beer. Ooh. That smells really good. Yeah. So, with this beer then, you can really smell the barrel aging straight up. This is one of the things, the Scotch ale, I think, they've got such complex aromas. I've always been a fan of the big malty beers, you know, Scotch ales, German Doppelbocks, the Belgian quads as well. I do, and even the you know, the German Dunkels and the Czech Chernies and stuff like this too. I always like I'm a big fan of my malty beers as well as the big hoppy ones. Yeah, I love trying Scotch ales. The aroma of this one is really nice. So yeah, you can definitely, to me, you can really smell a little bit of a peaty note coming out of this one. You can smell the big woody qualities in there, and you've got that nice sort of Scottish smoky peaty quality kind of in the basis of this one. To me, the peatiness that comes out of this beer comes across as quite earthy and also a little bit grassy. You can really just feel that forming the linchpin of this beer. And of course, when it comes to whiskies, as is the case with beer, I'm a huge fan of the smoky things. But yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. I love the aroma of this one. So thumbs up to Amager Bryghus for their aroma here. But to me, yeah, the woody notes, the nice oaky smoothness in there comes out. There's a little bit of a kind of charred note as well. You do get a little bit of the roasty, a little bit of a black malt quality almost with this one. But yeah, the woody qualities come across as quite earthy. Also as quite you know, also as being quite kind of slightly grassy actually. The peaty qualities in this are really interesting, both earthy and grassy, and the grassiness actually has a good little bit of kind of bite to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, this beer actually smells very, very nice. As I always say, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck in. But yeah, on the other side of the malts, I mean, you get a lot of brown sugar out of this one, which is what you would expect from a Scotch ale. It's quite a treacly brown sugar, to be honest with you. It does smell very big and very syrupy. This beer does have like a medicinally kind of phenol element to it, I think, as well. Almost a little touch of a cakey note. That's a little bit unusual for a Scotch ale, I would say. The kind of cakiness that comes out of this one and the sort of phenol-y medicinal qualities. I've not really had too many Scotch ales, if any actually, that have had that in it. So it's a little bit of a kind of unusual thing in that sense. But lovely big brown sugar notes. The barrel aging comes out straight away, because this is a series that's supposed to focus on barrel aging. But yeah, that smells absolutely lovely. I don't get to review too many Scotch ales for you on the channel. There's not even all that many Scotch ales in Scotland at the moment, so it's always a treat when I get to review one from a different country. But yeah, other than that, lovely brown sugars, quite toasty, quite syrupy at the same time. You can pick up a little bit of a biscuity sweetness in there as well. On the hoppy side of things, you've got the kind of grassy, earthy notes in there. And on the fruity side of things, it's interesting because it is a little bit like sultanas. You know, it's really got this kind of dried, white, green, grapey sort of thing coming out of it. You can really smell an almost grapey quality coming out of this beer. A little bit of a raisiny sharpness as well. I think some kind of dates or figs in there also, and a little bit of a kind of candied red fruity note too, but mainly a kind of medicinal phenol-y type fruity note out of this beer. But you know, overall, I really like how everything goes together in this one. It's a nice smelling Scotch, a little bit different compared to some of the other ones that I've had, a little bit more syrupy and dark compared to some of the American ones. The American Scotch ales, the wee heavies, I've always found that whenever the Americans take a beer style, they always make it a little bit, at least with the Scotch ales, they always make them a little bit sweeter and more fruity, juicy and fruity if you like, whereas the traditional Scotch ales had a little bit of a toasty character to the brown sugar and they weren't quite as fruity. So to me, the fruitiness in this one is a little bit more akin to the actual native Scotch ales, if that makes sense. But without further ado then, let's have a taste of this one and just see how we get on. This is the Red Cap, a barrel aged Scotch ale, aged for 7 months in Auchentoshan casks from Clydebank. from Amager Bryghus in Kastrup in Copenhagen. Lovely 9.5% barrel aged Scotch ale. Let's get stuck in. Slange Skull. Yeah, that's quite nice actually. It's definitely different from the other Scotch ales I've had. It's got a little bit, it really does have a little bit of this kind of real ale quality to it actually, which is quite nice. It's got a bit of a, if I'm thinking about this beer compared to other ones, it really does remind me of the, the more kind of traditional, almost English real ale type beers, which really is quite interesting, to be honest. So I like the fact that they've managed to keep a little bit of the kind of almost native traditional element to this beer, whereas the American ones, they're always very sugary and sweet. I do like the American Scotch ales, but I think when you can get the right balance between both of those, that's always a very good thing. Yeah, this beer is nice. It does have a good level of complexity to it actually. To me it comes across as being very medicinal, but you know, to me a Scotch ale is always very medicinal. It's always required every so often to keep me sane or less insane. But yeah, and with this one I would say straight away with this beer you're going to feel it does have that nice slightly bready base to it, which you always want from a Scotch ale. You can feel the wood, the sort of barrel aging flavours just infused in there. You can really feel that, and the further that the middle of the palate dries out, because the middle of the palate does dry out a little bit with this one, the further that you go into the aftertaste, the more and more you start to get of the more and more that you start to get the woody notes kind of pushing the way out of this beer. It's interesting because the aroma to this beer I felt was really quite peaty, but it's a little bit more, you don't really get too much in the way of peatiness in the flavour with this beer, to be honest with you. Yeah. There is a little bit of it, I think, but not too much. I can't say I've tried Auchentoshan, but I don't remember them. I don't remember having them being mentioned to me as being one of the more peaty, kind of whiskies. I always remember, I think they're maybe more of a sweet one, and I do get the impression from the woody elements in this beer that it would be a slightly more sweeter, maybe even slightly citrusy whiskey, the Auchentoshan, to be honest with you. So yeah, it's interesting. The woody infusions with this beer are really quite interesting. It's just interesting that there's such a contrast between the way that the beer comes across in its aroma and how the barrel aging side plays out in the flavour. But I like how this one's going together actually. It is a really nice, it's a nicely done Scotch ale, this one, definitely one that has a good bit of complexity to keep you interested in it. And that's what I really like about these beers. That's probably why I like the Doppelbock and the Quad so much as well. I love it when you've got a nice big malty complexity to the beer. But yeah, the barrel aging, the woody qualities are infused all the way throughout this one. I think when you come a little bit further forward in the beer, there's a little touch of a slightly vanilla note to this one. You can really feel the brown sugars in this beer as well. If you're in the very centre of your palate, you get a little bit of sweetness from the brown sugars, but as you move further out from that, you start to get the more oily, syrupy elements of the brown sugars coming out of there as well. So yeah, there's a really interesting blend of things going on in this one, and I think the more and more that I drink of this beer, you can detect a little bit of that roasty quality to it as well. So yeah, you really can detect a little bit more of that nice roasty toasty note with this one. You can feel it just almost right in the centre of your palate, but it comes out as a little bit of a subtlety in the aftertaste. But the way that the malt base and the sort of barrel aging part of this beer are working together is really, really nice. I have to say, you know, thumbs up to Amager for the way this beer's turned out. It's definitely one that's making me think, and it's quite different from other Scotch ales, but I do like that. You know, when you've reviewed so many beers now, I think it's getting near 1700, you do want things like this that are going to test your palate a little bit. The thing I'm finding about this beer generally as well is that it's very, very smooth, which I think is a good thing. On the hoppy side of things, it's quite, you know, straight up. It is pretty much what you'd expect. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there, and as you come further forward along the sides of the tongue there, you can really feel there is a little bit of the earthiness just smooths out very quickly. Maybe there's a teeny little touch of a herbal note. You can pick up just a tiny little bit of pardon me, just a tiny little bit of a floral note there at the front corners of the tongue. Then round the very front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, and of course behind the front curve of the tongue there's that oily bubble where there's the nice juicy fruity esters coming out of the beer. And the fruity part of this beer is the thing that makes it a little bit different, to be honest with you. I was saying that in the aroma as well. Yeah. So, the fruity side of this beer, you do almost get a little touch of a cakey note to this one behind the fruity part of the beer, but you get some really nice sort of datey, figgy kind of notes out of the yeah, definitely datey, figgy notes out of the beer. It's definitely got this element of an almost cough syrupy medicinal quality to it as well. It's definitely some phenols playing around in there. I don't think there's much doubt about that. I think there's a tiny little touch of an orangey quality to this as well, which is interesting. That'll be from the Azaka, and you can definitely feel a little bit of a more citrusy note, and I'm guessing that'll be the lemon drop that's giving you that. But the further you go into the flavour, the more that you get the sort of fruity, earthy parts coming out of the beer, or the sort of red fruity notes coming out of there, the medicinal kind of qualities actually. It really does get a little bit more phenolic, I think, the further you go into the taste, but when it dries out you do get a little bit of the citrusy, the almost, it's not quite, I don't think it's quite lemon, but you do get a little bit of those sharper citrusy notes, and also some of the orangey qualities as well, which is really nice. So yeah, this is it's quite an unusual Scotch ale, but it really works. You'll find, I think, down the kind of side, if you pay attention just to the inside part of your palate, if you just go to the kind of front corner of your tongue, then move in just a little bit, I think that's where you're getting some of these kind of slightly more peaty subtleties out of it. I do think there's a little touch of a peaty note to this one, and it does come across as being a little bit more earthy, I think, but there is a sort of grassiness to it as well. So there is the peaty elements are coming out of this beer, I think, but I do get the impression from the way that the woody flavours come out that the Auchentoshan ones, there is a little bit of peaty quality to it, but I think it's more of a slightly sweeter whiskey. I've never tried Auchentoshan, like I say, but that's maybe something I do need to do now on the channel for you as well, since I'm doing a couple of whiskey reviews. But yeah, this is a really nice Scotch ale, this one. It's quite different from the other ones that I've had. It's not quite the same as the likes of the Dirty Bastard or the Backwoods Bastard and things like that from that you'll find from Founders and stuff like that, but it's definitely more of a kind of traditional. It has a good element of some of the things you'd expect from the American Scotch ales, for example, the fruity side of the beer, but it really does have that nice traditional quality to it, and you will notice that this is ridiculously smooth, this beer as well. It's got a lovely big oily mouthfeel to it. So let's actually focus on the mouthfeel now then. So, as I said, the malt base does have a nice bit of smoothness to it. You can pick up a little bit of some of the black malts pushing their way out later on, but lovely big oily and smooth middle of the palate with this one. That's the main focus of the beer as well. You do get a little bit of hoppy bitterness. I think you're lucky if you get around 30, maybe 40 IBUs out of this one at most. There is a little bit of dryness, bitterness around the front curve of the palate as well, and some lovely juicy fruity notes as well. But yeah, you'll notice just how big and smooth a beer this is. This is definitely full bodied, there's no doubt in my mind about that. The mouthfeel overall, very, very oily. So have a go at this beer and just see what you think for yourself. I've really enjoyed this one. Quite different from the other Scotch ales that I've had. It's got a little bit of the American side of things, a little bit of the traditional Scottish side of things in there as well, and it really almost comes across as being quite like a a real ale sort of feel in terms of its carbonation and stuff. So yeah, just have a go at this beer for yourself and see what you think. I do hope that I can try the others in the series as well, because I think they've done a good job of this, and it's cool, of course, to try my first Scotch ale from Amager Bryghus, and I think my first one from Denmark as well, actually. So yeah, 2 birds with 1 stone, which is always good. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Red Cap, part of the Wicked Tales of Scotland series, a 9.5% Scotch ale aged for 7 months in Auchentoshan barrels. A really interesting beer. This one quite different from the other Scotch ales I've had, but I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. But at 9.5%, it is definitely a little bit of a treat. You can feel a little bit of that alcohol warmth down here. But let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Amager Bryghus as well, and I'm sure I'll return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Slàinte, Skål.